There's backlash today over the latest salvo fired by Meghan Markle at the royal family.
It's this consistent pattern of them just complaining about their lifestyle.
Former Member of Parliament Tim Loughton, a senior official, has bluntly called for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to be stripped of their royal titles. His remarks were not merely personal opinions. He was speaking on behalf of thousands of residents in Sussex, a region the couple was supposed to honor, represent, and remain connected to, condemning their glaring absence and shamefully indifferent attitude during the region's most significant local celebration, Sussex Day. Amid a string of scandals, their withdrawal from royal duties, and a series of divisive statements, Harry and Meghan have plunged their relationship with the United Kingdom into an unprecedented crisis of trust. But this time, the situation has crossed a new line. The public is no longer just disappointed, they are outraged. And now the question is no longer what they have done wrong, but whether they still deserve to bear the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Party Harry and Meghan, a disappointment called Duke, June 18th. The annual Sussex Day celebration should have been a moment of pride for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. This holiday honors the culturally rich region in the south of England, a place that since 2018 has been symbolically tied to the names of Harry and Meghan after Queen Elizabeth II bestowed the titles upon them on their wedding day. And yet, while residents across Sussex eagerly joined in music festivals, community fairs, and celebrations of local heritage, the two individuals meant to represent this very region were nowhere to be seen. No message of congratulations, no social media post, no indication whatsoever that they held even the slightest concern for the place now enshrined in their official titles. Harry and Meghan's absolute silence wasn't a mere oversight. It felt like an unspoken declaration they simply no longer care. In this context, the frustrated remarks from former MP Tim Loughton, who represents the area of East Worthing and Shoreham, became the final catalyst, echoing the deep and long-standing disappointment of the local population. Once again, the interest shown by the Duke and Duchess in the county of Sussex, whose title they still carry, is practically non-existent. He stated candidly in the Daily Mail, "We need a Duke and Duchess who actually care about this place. Even just a message of congratulations on Sussex Day shouldn't be too much to ask." Looking back at the couple's history, their absence on such occasions is far from unusual. Since 2018, Harry and Meghan have visited Sussex exactly once. A brief trip in October of that year, lasting less than 6 hours. And since stepping down from senior royal duties in 2020, they have not returned. They have launched no community initiatives in Sussex, funded no local development projects, and participated in none of the county's signature events. In an age where a single social media post can reach millions, their complete silence speaks volumes. This indifference isn't just a failure of duty, it's symbolic. To the people of Sussex, it feels like rejection, abandonment, and above all, exploitation of an honorary title for personal gain without giving anything meaningful in return. In other words, Harry and Meghan have borrowed the prestige without ever intending to repay the goodwill. On one hand, they continue to hold on to the titles granted by the late Queen, the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which remain among the most prestigious in the British nobility. On the other hand, they have fulfilled none of the representational duties associated with those titles, and no longer maintain any real connection to the place they are named after. This has created a bitter paradox. title laden with deep symbolic value, is now held by two individuals who have all but disappeared from the community's life. One cannot excuse such neglect by citing a busy schedule. Throughout 2024, Meghan has found time to attend numerous personal engagements, from Los Angeles events and private podcast recordings to dried flower business ventures and even Disneyland outings. As for Harry, he has given multiple interviews, published his memoir Spare, and appeared alongside his wife in a Netflix docuseries. If they can make time for all those activities, then why not spare just a few minutes to send a simple message to the region tied to their title? Some might argue that this is a minor detail not worth making a fuss over, but at a time when the British monarchy is working hard to reinforce its role as a national symbol, and when the Duke and Duchess themselves have repeatedly declared their love for the UK and their solidarity with its people, such silence on Sussex Day cuts deep into public trust. So the question now is, why do they still hold the Sussex titles? If they truly value personal freedom and wish to break away from royal protocols, then what meaning remains in keeping a noble title? Or is it precisely that title, with its symbolic weight, social credibility, and the potential for monetization through media deals, that they find too valuable to relinquish? To many citizens, this is no longer just the behavior of a royal couple. It is the story of exploiting a national symbol for personal benefit, and in the eyes of the public, that is simply unforgivable. Part 2. A life of unfulfilled duty. When the Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced their withdrawal from royal duties in 2020, they pledged to continue to support the Queen and their patronages in an unofficial capacity. However, it soon became apparent that this promise was nothing more than a veneer masking a complete abandonment of responsibility while retaining all the privileges that came with it. Harry was once considered the pride of the British royal family. He served in the military for 10 years, fought in Afghanistan, and was beloved for his approachable nature, his spirit of service, and his dedication to charitable causes. Yet, since leaving the palace, that image has gradually faded, tarnished by Harry himself, through the stories he's chosen to tell, at times resentful, at others bitter about his family, the media, and the very country he once represented. The charity Centre Ballet, founded by Harry in 2006 to support children in Africa affected by HIV/AIDS, was once a symbol of his humanitarian ideals. But since 2021, the organization has been in financial crisis, and the founder has been entirely absent. Annual reports show a sharp decline in funding, from $4.8 million in 2019 to less than $2 million by 2023. During this difficult period, Harry did not appear, offered no guidance, and made no public appeals to safeguard the charity's reputation. He simply vanished. While Harry's community-based projects gradually faded into the background, his personal ventures took a different turn: image monetization. His memoir, Spare, with an astonishing 1.4 million copies sold on its first day, became a publishing phenomenon and a painful media explosion. The book laid bare everything from family disputes to drug use, clashes with William, and scathing criticisms of the royal family, all while Harry continued to hold on to his royal title. To the public, this presented an ethical paradox that was hard to accept. He wants to be called a prince, insists on living as a private citizen, yet refuses to relinquish the privileges and influence that come with his royal status. But reputation comes with responsibility, and that apparently was something Harry chose to disregard. If Harry was the one who stepped away from royalty from the inside, then Meghan was the one who entered from the outside and left with a different prize, the title, as leverage. Meghan Markle was once a moderately known actress in Hollywood, best recognized for her role in the series Suits. She was intelligent, independent, and determined. But after marrying Harry, that image was reshaped, crafted into a 21st century princess representing feminism, independent spirit, and defiance against royal tradition. The problem was not with the values she championed, but in how Meghan used the royal title to elevate her personal status while sidestepping any communal responsibilities associated with it. The podcast Archetypes, a $20 million deal with Spotify, was initially expected to be an intellectual product, exploring themes of feminism and social bias. Yet the project lasted only one season before Spotify cancelled it. A senior executive at the platform bluntly referred to Meghan and Harry as audio grifters. According to Bloomberg, the number of podcast episodes Meghan was actually involved in producing was significantly lower than initially reported. And it wasn't just the podcast. The natural food brand she launched, from jams and dried flowers to scented oils, also quickly fell silent just months after its debut. The American press described it as a brand that died before it even lived. Meanwhile, Meghan continued to appear at lavish events recounting her life story as a carefully crafted media product under the name Duchess of Sussex. The question that arises is this: if she no longer has any connection to the UK, is no longer an active member of the royal family, and fulfills none of the representative duties, then why does she still retain and use that title everywhere, from social media to commercial events, and even in the names of her personal products? A media expert at Oxford University once observed, "The title Duchess of Sussex is now a global brand. It gives Meghan something she could never buy: aristocratic lineage, royal symbolism, and unparalleled media appeal. That title opens doors that others cannot even touch. And that is precisely why the public is outraged. When a title granted with the expectation of serving the community is used purely as a tool for personal marketing, does it still qualify as a legitimate title, or has it become merely a monetized asset? That is why the people of Britain, especially those in Sussex, feel deeply offended. Not just because they feel abandoned, but because their name Sussex is being exploited to serve the personal interests of two individuals who have turned their backs on the land it represents." Part 3. Anger and silent frustration erupt. Following this year's Sussex Day, one thing became unmistakably clear: public sentiment has moved far beyond mere disappointment. It has erupted into deep-seated anger. The wave of criticism didn't just explode on social media. It surfaced during constituent meetings, appeared in local newspapers, and most notably echoed within the chambers of the United Kingdom's Parliament. At the centre of the controversy was MP Tim Loughton, who made no effort to hide his frustration in the media. "We need a Duke and Duchess who truly care about this county. Simply showing up, or even just sending a greeting on our special day, would be enough to demonstrate their presence." His remarks were immediately quoted by over 30 major British news outlets within just 2 days, including the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, and the Times. Voices from Sussex: "We no longer need them." In towns like Brighton, Lewes, and Chichester, places that once warmly welcomed Harry and Meghan in 2018, banners now hang bearing the words, "No duty, no title." According to a quick poll conducted by the Sussex Express, After the celebration, 78% of respondents agreed that if the couple contributes nothing to the local community, their titles should be revoked. Of those surveyed, 64% even believed that a specific law should be introduced to strip royal titles when necessary. At a civic forum in Hove, one voter declared, "They left Britain, stepped away from the royal family, yet they still cling to their titles as if it's a golden ticket to cash in on Hollywood." That's an insult to the pride of the people of Sussex. The disappointment isn't merely about their absence on the holiday. It stems from the undeniable fact that since being granted the titles, Harry and Meghan have never engaged in a single community event in Sussex. No charitable programs have been launched under their names. No schools, hospitals, or social organizations have ever been publicly endorsed by them in the region. This silence has persisted for 6 years, and to this day, there is no sign that anything will change. A member of Arundel's town council remarked during a press conference on June 17th, "This title can't remain a hollow ornament forever. If it comes with no tangible commitment, then it should be passed on to someone more deserving. Indifference has become a symbol. While the public may once have offered them some sympathy, believing the couple needed time to adjust to their new life, that grace period has long expired. Time has made one truth evident. They have no intention of maintaining any connection to Sussex." Statistics from the Royal Communications Office reveal that Harry and Meghan visited Sussex only once, on October 3rd, 2018, shortly after receiving their titles. The visit lasted exactly 5 hours and 42 minutes. They stopped by a school, met with a few community groups, and left the same day. Since then, nearly 2,000 days have passed, and in that time, there has been no return, no explanation, no apology, and no promises. Their absence is no longer perceived as a missed appointment, but rather as a conscious choice. For many, especially among the older generation, it is seen as a cultural insult. In a country like the UK, where tradition is held as a national treasure, such apathy isn't just disrespect, it's betrayal. Veteran political columnist Robert Hardman of the Daily Mail once wrote, "If they truly valued the titles they were given, the Duke and Duchess would never let Sussex become nothing more than a caption in their Netflix biography series. They wouldn't make the people of Sussex feel like they were being exploited." Some members of Parliament have also spoken out, though no formal legislative action has been taken yet. Many argue that holding a title without fulfilling its associated duties directly contradicts the spirit of the Royal Charter. Professor Vernon Bogdana, a leading expert on British constitutional law, stated on BBC, "A noble title is not merely an honour. It comes with a kind of civic commitment tied to honourable duty. And when that duty is no longer fulfilled, the title itself must be reconsidered." The backlash isn't confined within the UK. International media outlets have begun raising the possibility of title removal as a practical solution. The Atlantic USA wrote, "To retain the titles Duke and Duchess, while abandoning royal obligations, not only creates contradiction, it also erodes the monarchy's credibility unnecessarily." French journalist Arnaud Delatour commented in Le Monde, "If Britain won't protect its own symbols, no one else can do it for them." At a time when public trust in institutions is under immense pressure across Europe, the British monarchy's firm stance toward individuals who shirk civic duty is increasingly seen as a vital reaffirmation of traditional values. And that right now is the heavy expectation placed on both Parliament and the royal family. Part 4, decoding the mechanism for stripping royal titles. Revoking a royal title is not easy, but it is far from unprecedented. In British history, the legal framework has been clearly established, specific cases have been addressed, and there have been instances that mirror the current situation surrounding Harry and Meghan, where a growing disconnect between title and conduct has compelled the Crown or Parliament to act. The question is no longer, is it possible, but rather, when will it begin? First, it's important to clarify that Harry and Meghan hold two fundamentally different forms of titles: the peerage title of Duke Duchess of Sussex and the royal style, his/her, Royal Highness HRH. These are two distinct concepts, both legally and symbolically, and each follows a separate process for revocation. The title Duke of Sussex is a peerage and aristocratic designation granted by the monarch, but governed under parliamentary authority via legislative law. To revoke this title, a specific act of Parliament must be passed, much like what occurred nearly a century ago. In contrast, the HRH style is a ceremonial designation rooted in royal protocol, and its removal lies solely at the discretion of the reigning monarch, implemented through the issuance of a letters patent. One of the clearest precedents is the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, enacted by Parliament during World War I. This legislation authorized the stripping of royal titles from those with ties or demonstrated loyalty to Germany, then Britain's enemy. Those affected included the Dukes of Albany and Cumberland, who were deemed disloyal due to their connections to the German House of Hohenzollern. From this precedent, a guiding principle was established: titles may be revoked when the holder acts contrary to national interests or causes reputational damage to the monarchy. While there is no war today, as in 1917, divisive statements within the royal family, leveraging titles for personal profit, or actions that erode the monarchy's public standing, all qualify as grounds under this principle. A more recent example came in 2022, when Queen Elizabeth II formally removed Prince Andrew's HRH designation following scandals involving financier Jeffrey Epstein. The move was powerfully symbolic, a clear message that even a biological son of the Queen would not retain royal status if found unworthy. In that context, public discourse naturally turned to Harry if Andrew could be stripped of his title. Why does Harry, who has repeatedly criticized his family, abandoned royal duty, and monetized his royal fame, continue to retain every privilege? Many constitutional experts affirm that stripping the HRH style from Harry and Meghan is entirely within the authority of King Charles III. In fact, Queen Elizabeth reportedly considered this move as early as 2020, when the couple first announced a partial withdrawal from royal duties. The outcome of the now famous Sandringham summit was a compromise. Harry and Meghan would no longer use the HRH title in public engagements, but it would not be formally revoked. As a result, they still legally retain the designation and have continued to use it, at times clearly, at times subtly, in media campaigns and branded ventures. This ambiguity is now placing growing pressure on the monarchy. As for the Duke of Sussex title, the path to revocation is more complex. Under current law, a formal act of Parliament would be required, similar to the 1917 Titles Deprivation Act. Once passed, the King would then issue a royal decree to complete the revocation. Though procedurally involved, this is entirely feasible. Given the rising tide of public discontent, especially in southern England, a bill such as the Sussex Title Review Act, if introduced, could garner significant support in Parliament. It is essential to remember that royal titles are not permanent entitlements. They are not protected under the Constitution like civil rights. They are symbolic, and any symbol must be upheld through honor, sustained through responsibility, and subject to removal when no longer deserved. One remarkable detail: if such a bill were presented to Parliament, it would be read aloud to the nation by none other than King Charles III himself, during the ceremonial King's speech that opens Parliament. Imagine one day the King publicly announcing, "My government will begin the process of revoking the titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex." What once seemed like a distant scenario is now a subject of serious political discussion in the UK. Some reformist MPs have even proposed a faster route, amending the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917 to suit modern conditions, rather than drafting an entirely new bill. By doing so, Parliament could designate specific individuals, including Harry and Meghan, as no longer fit to hold their titles based on actions deemed damaging to the dignity of the monarchy. In short, the legal infrastructure is already in place. Historical precedents remain valid. The pressing question now is whether Britain's political elite are prepared to act to safeguard a national symbol, and whether the royal family, especially King Charles III, has the resolve to make a definitive decision and close this turbulent chapter, or whether the ambiguity between title and substance will continue to linger. Part this, the cascading consequences of title revocation. If Parliament were to pass legislation stripping Harry and Meghan of their titles as Duke and Duchess of Sussex, it would trigger an international media earthquake. But more importantly, it would set off a ripple effect spanning symbolism politics, finance and personal branding that would impact not only the couple themselves, but the British monarchy as a whole. Even if the title Duke of Sussex were revoked, Harry would still retain the style of prince as it is. A birthright, not a conferred title. As the son of King Charles III and the grandson of the late Queen Elizabeth II, Harry was born a prince, and that cannot be taken away. However, retaining the title is not the same as maintaining respect. A prince who fulfills no role, performs no public duties, and has no meaningful connection to the country becomes in essence a relic of the past. The name Prince Harry would then lose its weight, becoming a hollow label more associated with controversy, scandal, and rifts within the royal family than with any enduring legacy. This scenario is not far removed from that of Prince Michael of Kent, who still bears the title of Prince, but has virtually disappeared from public life. The key difference is that Harry was once a central figure on the global stage, and once his official title is stripped, his withdrawal from royal life would no longer be seen as a personal choice, but as a formal demotion. Public perception is sensitive. When a title is gone, business partners, media platforms, and global audiences begin to reassess, is Harry still worth investing in? A man with no title, no role, and no symbolic authority? Does he still belong in the inner circle? Or is he now just another once famous figure, fading into irrelevance? For Meghan, the consequences would be even more immediate and stark. If the title Duchess of Sussex is revoked, she cannot simply become Princess Meghan, as many wrongly assume. Under the strict conventions of the royal family, a prince's wife is not addressed by her given name, but by a title tied to her husband. In other words, if she loses the Duchess title, Meghan would be formally referred to as Princess Henry of Wales, a title that is impersonal, dependent entirely on her husband, and diametrically opposed to the image of the independent woman she has worked to project since her marriage. From the powerful brand identity of Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, she would fall into a space of undefined recognition, even brand confusion. She cannot publicly present herself as Princess Meghan, as that violates royal protocol, but using only Meghan Markle strips away the cachet and gravitas she relied on for magazine covers, Netflix deals, and premium brand partnerships. Legally, Meghan remains a private citizen, free to do business and travel. But symbolically, she would lose the most potent form of soft power she has ever possessed, a royal title. The question then becomes, how much of the Meghan brand's value remains once the Duchess is gone? The Duke and Duchess of Sussex title is not merely an honorific, it is the cornerstone of the entire media and commercial ecosystem that Harry and Meghan have meticulously built over the past 5 years. Their company Archewell, including its media division, content production arm, and charitable foundation, was constructed upon royal recognition. Their major contracts with Netflix, Spotify, Penguin Random House, and others all stem from a singular draw. They are royal family members holding legitimate titles, offering the enticing narrative of insiders stepping beyond the palace gates. Once the title is revoked, that symbolic umbrella vanishes and the entire ecosystem loses its lawful foundation in terms of image. This shift will directly impact their commercial negotiation power. Their brand would no longer represent a royal perspective, but merely a story of former royals now turned celebrities. That distinction would diminish media value, weaken audience pull, and shake the confidence of existing and future partners. A branding expert from the London School of Economics once observed, once the title is gone, they are no different from any other celebrity couple in Hollywood. And when uniqueness disappears, so does brand value. What follows next is a steady erosion of public trust. Once they no longer hold titles representing the royal family, any future criticism they make against the monarchy will lose its former weight and will more easily be seen as petty attacks coming from those who have been stripped of privilege. In other words, while they were once perhaps viewed as truth-tellers, revealing the inner workings for a higher cause, losing their titles would quickly redefine that image as two fallen figures clinging to relevance through bitter commentary from the sidelines. At this point, revoking the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex is no longer a knee-jerk reaction from a disgruntled segment of the public. It has become a reasonable demand, backed by clear legal grounds, strong historical precedent, widespread public support, and the logical need to protect vital national values. Legally, Parliament has full authority to act. Symbolically, the monarchy bears the responsibility of reaffirming the true value of noble titles. And from a cultural, social, and media perspective, the public has the right to insist that the title Sussex not be reduced to a vehicle for personal gain, commercial exploitation, or even opposition to the very institution that conferred it. We cannot continue to uphold a symbol that has lost its substance, and we certainly cannot allow a national honor to become nothing more than a globally traded marketing device. If a royal title no longer comes with responsibility, then it is merely an empty shell, and in that case, it must be revoked. Stripping the title should not be seen as an act of punishment, but as the restoration of rightful order. It is a clear declaration that privilege must always be accompanied by duty, and that symbols only have meaning when protected by real visible action. In a world growing more chaotic, where the line between reality and media spectacle is increasingly blurred, clarity, firmness, and integrity are more valuable than ever. That is precisely why revoking the titles of Harry and Meghan is not only the right decision, it is the necessary one. Not because of what has already happened, but because of what must be preserved for the future. And what about you? Do you believe the time has come for Harry and Meghan to be stripped of their titles? In your view, what would be fair for them, for the monarchy, and for the United Kingdom as a whole? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. We genuinely want to hear from you. And if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it to help spread this direct and honest perspective to even more people.